My name is Margaret, and at 73, I thought I knew my family well enough. Living in suburban Portland, Oregon, my days had settled into comfortable routines until that Tuesday morning when everything I believed about my life came crashing down. What time are we leaving for our trip to Yellowstone? I asked my daughter-in-law, Sarah, as she prepared breakfast in my kitchen. The family vacation had been planned for months, something to celebrate my recovery from hip surgery and bring everyone together. Sarah froze mid-motion, the coffee pot suspended in her trembling hand. Her face went pale, and she turned to look at me with eyes filled with a mixture of pity and something else I couldn't quite identify. "Mom, Margaret," she said gently, setting the pot down and taking my hands in hers. "We came yesterday. The trip was yesterday. We've been back for 3 days now." The words hit me like a physical blow. I stared at her, searching for any sign that this was some kind of cruel joke. But Sarah's expression remained compassionate, yet deeply concerned. My mind raced, trying to grasp onto memories that felt like smoke slipping through my fingers. "That's impossible," I whispered. But even as I said it, fragments began surfacing. Vague images of mountains, of my grandson Tommy running through tall grass, of sleeping in an unfamiliar bed. But they felt distant, like watching someone else's home movies. Sarah guided me to the kitchen chair, her nurse's training evident in her gentle but purposeful movements. "You were there with us, Mom. You took beautiful photos of the geysers. You told us stories about Grandpa Joe's fishing trips. Don't you remember buying that turquoise bracelet at the gift shop?" I looked down at my wrist, and there it was. A silver bracelet with 3 turquoise stones that I had no memory of purchasing. The metal felt foreign against my skin, like it belonged to someone else. "I think we need to call Dr. Chen," Sarah said softly, reaching for her phone. The room began to spin slightly, and I gripped the edge of the table. How could I have lost 4 entire days? How could I have lived through experiences that had completely vanished from my memory? Fear crept up my spine like ice water. "Sarah," I managed to say, "what's happening to me?" But before she could answer, I heard my son David's voice from the living room, talking quietly on the phone. I caught fragments, girlier than we expected, and "need to move quickly," and most chilling of all, she doesn't remember any of it. The bracelet felt heavier with each passing second, a tangible reminder of a life I was apparently living, but couldn't remember. Outside, the Oregon rain began to fall, tapping against the windows like fingernails, and I wondered what other memories might be locked away in the dark corners of my mind, waiting to surface or disappear forever. Sarah squeezed my hand. "We're going to figure this out together, Mom. I promise." But as I looked into her eyes, I saw something that terrified me more than my missing memories. The look of someone who was already preparing to say goodbye. Dr. Chen's office smelled like antiseptic and false hope. I sat in the uncomfortable chair, watching her review test results while David and Sarah flanked me like protective sentinels. The neurologist's expression revealed nothing, but the way she kept glancing between the computer screen and my face told me everything I needed to know. "Mrs. Patterson," she began carefully, "the MRI shows some concerning changes in your brain, particularly in the hippocampus region. Combined with the memory episodes you've been experiencing, I'm afraid we're looking at early-stage Alzheimer's. Disease." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. I felt David's hand tighten on my shoulder, while Sarah reached for tissues she would need more than I would. I had expected this, but hearing it confirmed felt like stepping off a cliff. "How long?" I asked, surprised by the steadiness of my own voice. It's difficult to predict. Could be months, could be years. But Margaret, there's something else we need to discuss. Dr. Chen's tone shifted, becoming more serious. Your insurance company has been flagging your claims. There's been some irregularities in your coverage. Sarah leaned forward. What kind of irregularities? It appears someone has been submitting claims for treatments you never received, medications you were never prescribed. The insurance company is launching an investigation, and until it's resolved, they've frozen your benefits. I stared at her in disbelief. But I need those medications you just prescribed. I need the follow-up appointments. I know, and I'm going to help you navigate this. But Margaret, I have to ask, do you have any idea who might have access to your insurance information? My mind immediately went to the assisted living facility where I'd been considering moving. Golden Years Manor had seemed perfect. Too perfect, perhaps. The director, Linda Morrison, had been incredibly helpful, almost pushily so, insisting on handling all the paperwork, even offering to coordinate with my insurance company directly. There might be someone, I said slowly, the pieces clicking together like a puzzle I didn't want to solve. David and Sarah exchanged glances. Mom, we need to report this, David said. Report what? That I'm losing my mind and apparently being robbed at the same time? The bitterness in my voice surprised me. Dr. Chen leaned forward. Margaret, what you're experiencing isn't your fault. The memory loss, the confusion. These are symptoms of a disease. But if someone is taking advantage of that, exploiting vulnerable seniors, that's a crime. And unfortunately, it's more common than you might think. She pulled out a folder thick with papers. I've been seeing an alarming pattern lately. Elderly patients, particularly those showing early signs of cognitive decline, being targeted by unscrupulous individuals and organizations. They gain trust, offer help with paperwork, then systematically drain insurance benefits, sometimes even bank accounts. The room felt smaller suddenly, the walls closing in. I thought about all the documents I'd signed at Golden Years Manor, how Linda had rushed me through them, saying it was just standard paperwork. I thought about how she'd insisted on being my emergency contact, how she'd asked detailed questions about my family's financial situation. There's something else, I said quietly. The assisted living facility. They wanted me to sign papers, giving them power of attorney. They said it would make the transition easier. The silence that followed was deafening. Dr. Chen's expression darkened. Did you sign those papers? I don't remember. The admission felt like swallowing glass. Sarah pulled out her phone. I'm calling the police. Wait, Dr. Chen said. Before we involve law enforcement, we need to document everything. Margaret, I want you to write down everything you can remember about Golden Years Manor, about Linda Morrison, about any paperwork you might have signed. Even if the memories seem fuzzy, write them down. As I left the office that day, prescription bottles rattling in my purse that I couldn't afford to fill, I realized that losing my mind was the least of my problems. Someone was stealing my life, piece by piece, and I might be too late to stop them. The fight wasn't just against a disease anymore. It was against predators who saw people like me as prey. The cramped community center meeting room buzzed with nervous energy as I sat among 12 other seniors, each holding a folder thick with documents. Detective Maria Santos had organized this gathering after Sarah's call about my situation led to a much larger investigation. What started as my individual case had uncovered a network that shocked even the seasoned detective. "Ladies and gentlemen," Detective Santos began, her voice commanding attention despite her petite stature. "What we've discovered is a sophisticated fraud operation targeting seniors across Portland and 3 surrounding counties. Golden Years Manor is just the tip of the iceberg." An elderly man named Harold raised his shaking hand. "My daughter found out they'd been billing my insurance for physical therapy sessions I never attended. $27,000 worth." "Same here," added Dorothy, a woman about my age wearing thick glasses. "Except it was for psychiatric consultations. I've never seen a psychiatrist in my life." Detective Santos nodded grimly. "The pattern is always the same. They target seniors showing early signs of cognitive decline, gain their trust, then systematically exploit their insurance benefits while preparing to access larger assets through fraudulent power of attorney agreements." I felt my chest tighten as she continued. "Mrs. Patterson, your case helped us understand their methodology. They use the confusion and memory issues associated with early dementia to gaslight victims into questioning their own reality. You questioning the Yellowstone trip, for instance. That was real confusion, but Linda Morrison documented it as evidence of your diminished capacity to support their power of attorney filing." The room erupted in angry murmurs. I felt violated in a way that went beyond financial theft. They had weaponized my disease against me, used my most vulnerable moments as tools for their fraud. "How many people?" asked Harold. "We've identified 47 victims so far, with total losses exceeding $2.3 million. But here's where it gets worse. This isn't just about insurance fraud." Detective Santos clicked to a new slide showing a network diagram. "Golden Years Manor is connected to several other facilities, fake home care agencies, and what we believe is a larger elder abuse ring operating across the Pacific Northwest." My stomach dropped. "Are there others like me? People who signed papers they don't remember?" 8 that we know of. The good news is that papers signed under duress or by someone lacking mental capacity can be invalidated. The bad news is that proving this in court while you're dealing with progressive memory loss, it's going to be challenging. Sarah squeezed my hand. "We're not backing down," Detective Santos smiled. "That's exactly what I was hoping to hear, because we need your help to stop them. Mrs. Patterson, you're scheduled for one more appointment at Golden Years Manor tomorrow. Linda Morrison doesn't know we're onto her yet." The detective leaned forward. "We want you to wear a wire." The room fell silent. I stared at her, processing the request. "You want me to go back there? To confront her?" "We need evidence of her admitting to the fraud, of her acknowledging that she knew about your condition when she pushed those documents on you. With your testimony and the recorded evidence, we can not only prosecute her, but also help all the other victims recover their losses." I thought about Harold's shaking hands, Dorothy's thick glasses, all these people who had trusted caregivers only to be betrayed. I thought about other seniors out there who might fall into the same trap. What if I forget what I'm supposed to say? What if I can't remember the questions you want me to ask? Detective Santos reached into her briefcase and pulled out a small device. "This is a 2-way communication system. I'll be in a van outside, listening. If you get confused or forget, I can prompt you through an earpiece." David looked concerned. "Is this safe? What if they suspect something?" "Your mother has already demonstrated remarkable courage just by coming forward. Linda Morrison sees her as a confused old woman who won't remember conversations from one day to the next. She won't expect Mrs. Patterson to be working with law enforcement." I looked around the room at all the faces. People who had been violated, stolen from, dismissed as incompetent simply because their minds were changing. For the first time since my diagnosis, I felt something other than fear and sadness. I felt angry. And anger, I was discovering, could be a powerful motivator. "When do we do this?" I asked. Detective Santos smiled. "Tomorrow at 2 p.m. Let's take these bastards down." The small recording device taped to my chest felt like it weighed 100 pounds as I walked through the pristine lobby of Golden Years Manor. My hands trembled slightly. Whether from nerves or the progression of my condition, I couldn't tell anymore. Detective Santos's voice crackled softly in my nearly invisible earpiece. "You're doing great, Margaret. Remember, act confused. Let her think she's in control." Linda Morrison appeared within moments, all false smiles and predatory warmth. She wore the same navy blazer as always, her blonde hair perfectly styled, her manner simultaneously caring and condescending. "Margaret, how wonderful to see you again. How are you feeling, dear?" Her voice dripped with manufactured concern. I'm confused about some things," I said, playing into her expectations. "My daughter-in-law found some papers in my purse, and I don't remember signing them." Linda's eyes lit up with what I now recognized as opportunistic delight. "Oh, sweetie, that's completely normal. You signed them right here in my office last week. Don't you remember? We talked about how important it was to get your affairs in order, especially with your condition." She guided me toward her office, past the carefully decorated common areas designed to look homey and safe. The walls were lined with photos of smiling seniors, but now I wondered how many of them were victims rather than residents. "Linda," I said once we were seated in her office, "I found a turquoise bracelet in my jewelry box, and I don't remember buying it. My family says we went to Yellowstone, but I can't remember any of it. I'm scared." "Oh, honey." Linda leaned forward, her expression a masterclass in false empathy. "This is exactly why we need to make sure someone reliable is handling your important decisions. The power of attorney papers you signed. Those protect you from making mistakes when your memory isn't working properly." Detective Santos's voice whispered in my ear. "Ask her to explain what the papers mean. Can you explain those papers to me again?" "I'm having trouble understanding." Linda pulled out a thick folder from her desk drawer. "Of course, dear. These documents give Golden Years Manor the authority to make financial and medical decisions on your behalf when you're not capable of doing so yourself. It's really for your own protection." "But what if I don't want someone else making those decisions?" Linda's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something cold underneath. "Margaret, sweetie, you have to be realistic about your situation. Your family told me about the Yellowstone trip. You were there for 4 days and don't remember any of it. What happens when you forget to pay bills? Or when you can't remember taking your medication? You could hurt yourself. My family could help me with those things. Your family has their own lives, dear. They can't watch you 24 hours a day. That's why facilities like ours exist. We're professionals." Detective Santos prompted. "Ask about the insurance claims." Linda, someone from my insurance company, called. "They said there were claims for treatments I never received. Do you know anything about that?" For a split second, Linda's composure cracked entirely. Her eyes hardened, and when she spoke again, her voice had lost all pretense of warmth. "Insurance companies make mistakes all the time, Margaret, especially when dealing with patients who have memory issues. Sometimes they don't remember receiving treatments, or they get confused about appointments. That's very common with people in your condition. But I would remember getting physical therapy, wouldn't I?" Linda stood up abruptly, moving to the window. "Margaret, I think you're getting worked up over nothing. Why don't we focus on getting you settled here where we can take proper care of you? I have some new papers that will make the transition even smoother." She returned to her desk and pulled out another set of documents. "These just simplify the process. Sign here and here, and we can have you moved in by next week." I looked at the papers, my heart pounding. Even with my compromised memory, I could see these were bank authorization forms, investment account transfers, even a will amendment. "Linda," I said slowly, "these aren't facility admission papers. These are papers to transfer all my money to you." The silence that followed was deafening. Linda's carefully constructed facade finally crumbled completely. "You stupid old bat," she hissed. "You won't even remember this conversation tomorrow. Sign the damn papers or I'll have you declared incompetent and take everything anyway." "Got it," whispered Detective Santos in my ear. "Perfect." But Linda wasn't finished. "Do you think you're the first senile old fool I've dealt with? I've been bleeding dry, pathetic losers like you for years. Sign the papers, Margaret, or things are going to get very unpleasant." That's when I smiled and pulled out the small recording device. "I may be losing my memory, Linda, but I'm not stupid. Hey, everyone. If you're loving this incredible story of courage and justice, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments below. Don't miss the next chapter because Margaret's journey is far from over." The courtroom was packed with seniors, family members, and local media as Linda Morrison's trial reached its climax. 6 months had passed since that confrontation in her office, and my memory had deteriorated noticeably. But Detective Santos had prepared me thoroughly for my testimony. The recording device had captured everything, and Linda's threats were crystal clear. Sarah sat beside me in the witness box, ready to help if I became confused. The prosecutor, a sharp young woman named Jessica Chen, approached with a gentle but determined manner. "Mrs. Patterson, can you tell the court about your experience with the defendant?" I looked at Linda Morrison seated at the defense table, no longer the polished predator I'd first met. Orange jail scrubs had replaced her navy blazer, and her blonde hair hung limp and unwashed. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "She took advantage of my illness," I said clearly. "She saw my memory problems as an opportunity to steal from me and dozens of other seniors." The defense attorney objected, claiming I wasn't competent to testify, but Judge Roberts had already ruled on my competency after extensive evaluation. Despite my Alzheimer's diagnosis, I was still capable of understanding truth from lies, right from wrong. "Mrs. Patterson," Prosecutor Chen continued, "can you explain what happened when you discovered fraudulent insurance claims in your name? Linda told me that people with memory problems often forget receiving treatments. She made me doubt my own reality. She used my disease against me." My voice grew stronger as I continued. "But I never forgot the feeling of being violated, of being seen as prey instead of a person." The prosecutor played the recording from that final meeting. Linda's voice filled the courtroom. "You stupid old bat. I've been bleeding dry, pathetic losers like you for years." Gasps echoed through the gallery. In the front row, Harold wiped tears from his eyes, while Dorothy shook her head in disgust. The 12 seniors who had come forward were all here, a united front against elder abuse. "Mrs. Patterson," the prosecutor continued, "the defendant's attorney has suggested that your memory issues make you an unreliable witness. What would you say to that?" I turned to face the jury directly. "My memory of recent events may be imperfect, but I remember fear. I remember shame. I remember feeling helpless and confused. And I remember the moment I realized that someone was using those feelings to rob me." I paused, gathering my thoughts. What Linda Morrison did wasn't just steal money. She stole dignity. She stole trust. She made me doubt my own mind even more than the disease already does. The defense attorney tried to poke holes in my testimony during cross-examination, suggesting I was confused, that I might be misremembering events. But every time he challenged me, Detective Santos would nod from the gallery, and I'd remember my purpose here. "Sir," I said during one particularly aggressive line of questioning, "I may have Alzheimer's disease, but I'm not an idiot. I can tell the difference between forgetting where I put my keys and being systematically robbed." The trial lasted 3 weeks. Expert witnesses testified about elder abuse patterns. Financial crimes specialists explained the insurance fraud scheme, and one by one, Linda's victims told their stories. The evidence was overwhelming. But the most powerful moment came when Detective Santos revealed the full scope of the operation. Golden Years Manor was part of a network spanning 4 states, with total losses exceeding $8 million. Linda Morrison wasn't just a local predator. She was part of an organized criminal enterprise targeting vulnerable seniors across the Pacific Northwest. When the guilty verdict came down on all 23 counts of fraud, elder abuse, and racketeering, the courtroom erupted in applause. Linda Morrison was sentenced to 22 years in federal prison. Judge Roberts addressed the court before dismissing everyone. Elder abuse is one of the most heinous crimes in our society because it targets our most vulnerable citizens. But this case has also shown us something important: that seniors with cognitive challenges are not helpless victims. They are human beings deserving of respect, protection, and justice. As we left the courthouse, Harold approached me with tears in his eyes. "Thank you, Margaret. You gave us our voices back." Dorothy hugged me tightly. "You showed them we're not giving up without a fight." But perhaps the most meaningful moment came from Detective Santos. "Mrs. Patterson, your courage to come forward and wear that wire led to the arrest of 17 other individuals in this network. You may have saved hundreds of seniors from being victimized." Walking out into the Portland sunshine, I felt something I hadn't experienced since my diagnosis. Pride. My memory might be failing, but my moral compass remained true north. 3 months after the trial, I sat in my new apartment at Sunset Gardens, a legitimate assisted living facility that had been thoroughly vetted by Detective Santos and a team of elder rights advocates. Unlike Golden Years Manor, this place felt genuinely warm and caring. The staff treated residents with respect, not condescension, and importantly, they had transparent financial practices with multiple oversight committees. My condition had progressed since the trial. Some days were better than others, but I was learning to live with the uncertainty. Sarah visited twice a week, David called daily, and my grandson Tommy had started spending Saturday afternoons with me, helping me write in a journal that documented both my memories and my present experiences. "Grandma Margaret," Tommy said as we sat in the community garden, "why did that bad lady try to take advantage of you and the other old people?" I smiled at his directness. At 8 years old, he saw the world in clear terms of right and wrong. Some people think that when you get old, especially when your mind starts changing, you become weak and easy to trick. But they're wrong about that. "You weren't weak. You fought back." I had help from a lot of good people. Sometimes being strong means knowing when to ask for help. What Tommy didn't know was that my involvement in the Linda Morrison case had led to something much larger. Detective Santos had connected me with the National Center on Elder Abuse, and despite my diagnosis, I had become an unlikely advocate for seniors' rights. Dr. Patricia Williams from the center had visited me the week before. "Margaret, Your testimony has been used to train law enforcement officers in 12 states about elder abuse patterns. Your story is making a real difference. But I can't remember giving that many interviews. I had confessed, frustrated by the gaps in my memory. That's okay. The important thing is that you're helping people even when you can't remember doing it. Your courage has a life of its own now. She was right. Letters arrived weekly from seniors across the country who had heard my story through news coverage or advocacy groups. Many had discovered their own situations of financial abuse and found the strength to come forward. One letter particularly moved me, from an 80-year-old man in Montana. Mrs. Patterson, watching you testify on the news gave me the courage to report my nephew, who was stealing from me. I was embarrassed because family is supposed to take care of family. But you showed me that protecting myself isn't selfish. It's necessary. The ripple effects continued to surprise me. The state legislature had passed Margaret's Law, requiring additional safeguards and oversight for facilities serving seniors with cognitive impairments. Detective Santos had been promoted and now headed a new elder crimes unit. But perhaps most importantly, the other seniors from our support group had remained close friends. We met monthly for lunch, sharing our struggles and victories. Harold had recovered most of his stolen money and was volunteering as a financial literacy instructor for seniors. Dorothy had become a fierce advocate, traveling to speak at senior centers about recognizing fraud. We're not victims anymore, she often said. We're survivors, and we're fighting back. As Tommy and I tended to the tomato plants we'd planted together, I reflected on how my life had changed. Yes, I was losing pieces of my memory daily. Yes, the future was uncertain and sometimes frightening. But I had also discovered that having Alzheimer's disease didn't make me less valuable as a person. Grandma Margaret, Tommy said, carefully watering a seedling. Will you always remember me? The question hit me like a physical blow, but I knelt down to his level and looked him in the eyes. Tommy, there might come a time when I don't remember your name or recognize your face. But you know what will never change? He shook his head. The love I have for you. Even if I can't remember you, that love will still be there, somewhere deep inside. And every time you do something kind, every time you stand up for someone who needs help, that love will be alive in the world through you. He hugged me tightly, and I knew that regardless of what my memory took from me, this moment, this connection, was real and meaningful. Later that evening, as I wrote in my journal, I realized that my fight against Linda Morrison hadn't just been about justice. It had been about reclaiming my humanity, proving that people with cognitive challenges deserve dignity and respect. The auditorium at Portland Community College was filled to capacity as I prepared for what would likely be my final public speaking engagement. My condition had progressed significantly over the past year, and while I still had good days and bad days, the bad days were becoming more frequent. Sarah sat in the front row, ready to help if I became confused, while Detective Santos introduced me to the crowd of social workers, healthcare providers, and law enforcement officers. Ladies and gentlemen, Detective Santos began. Margaret Patterson has become a symbol of resilience and courage in our fight against elder abuse. Despite battling Alzheimer's disease, she has helped convict 17 criminals, recovered over $4 million for victims, and inspired legislative changes that protect seniors across the nation. As I walked to the podium, I felt the weight of everyone's expectations. These people had come to hear wisdom from someone who was supposed to be wise. But most days I felt like I was drowning in my own confusion. I gripped the podium and looked out at the sea of faces. 2 years ago, I began. reading from notes I'd prepared with Sarah's help. I asked my daughter-in-law what time we were leaving for our family trip. When she told me we had already come back, that I had been there but couldn't remember, I thought my life was over. I paused, seeing nods of understanding throughout the audience. I thought having Alzheimer's disease meant I would become useless, a burden, someone to be pitied and eventually forgotten. And there are people out there who see seniors like me exactly that way, as easy targets for their greed. My voice grew stronger as I continued. But what I learned is that losing your memory doesn't mean losing your worth. Having cognitive challenges doesn't make you less human. And sometimes, fighting back isn't about winning. It's about refusing to disappear quietly. I told them about Linda Morrison, about the network of predators who saw vulnerability as opportunity. I talked about the other seniors who had found their voices, about the legislation that now protected people like us. The thing about Alzheimer's is that it takes away your recent memories first, I explained. But it can't touch your core values, your sense of right and wrong, your capacity for love and courage. Linda Morrison thought my disease made me weak. She was wrong. A woman in the third row raised her hand. Mrs. Patterson, how do we help seniors recognize when they're being taken advantage of? I thought carefully before answering. Listen to them. Really listen. When a senior seems confused about their finances, when they mention people who are helping them in ways that seem intrusive, when they express fear or uncertainty about their living situation, pay attention. Don't dismiss their concerns just because they have memory issues. Also, I continued, teach them that asking for help isn't shameful. I was embarrassed about my memory problems, so I tried to handle everything alone. That made me vulnerable. If I had talked to my family sooner, if I had been more open about my struggles, Linda Morrison never would have been able to exploit me. An older man in the audience stood up. I'm a caregiver, and sometimes I see seniors who seem to be in denial about their cognitive changes. How do we address that sensitively? Respect their dignity, I replied immediately. Don't talk down to them or treat them like children. Include them in decisions about their care. And remember that someone can have memory problems and still be capable of making many decisions for themselves. The goal should be support, not replacement. After the presentation, people lined up to speak with me personally. A young social worker thanked me for showing her how to better advocate for her clients. A police officer shared that he'd used techniques from my case to investigate other elder abuse situations. An elderly woman, probably around my age, hugged me and whispered, "You made me feel brave." But the most meaningful conversation came from Detective Santos as she drove me home. "Margaret, I need to tell you something. The Linda Morrison case opened doors for investigations across the country. Last month, we arrested the leaders of the entire network. 47 people are now in federal prison because you were brave enough to wear that wire." I stared out the window at Portland's familiar streets, processing this information. "I don't remember much about wearing the wire," I admitted. "That's okay. Your courage that day has had consequences you may never fully understand. You saved hundreds of people from being victimized." As we pulled up to Sunset Gardens, Detective Santos turned to me with tears in her eyes. "Margaret, in my 25 years of law enforcement, I've never seen anyone fight back against injustice with as much determination as you showed. You've changed how we think about seniors with cognitive challenges. You've proved that having Alzheimer's doesn't disqualify someone from being a hero." That night, as I sat in my apartment looking through photo albums with Sarah, I realized something profound. Yes, I was losing my memories, Yes, the disease was progressing, but my actions had created new memories in other people. Memories of courage, of justice, of an elderly woman who refused to be silently victimized. "Mom Margaret," Sarah said softly, "you should be proud of what you've accomplished." I smiled, feeling a peace I hadn't experienced in years. My memory might be failing, but my legacy was secure. If this story has touched your hearts, please hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible stories like this one. Share in the comments what impressed you most about Margaret's fight. See you next time! 5 years have passed since that morning when I asked Sarah about our departure time for Yellowstone. I'm writing this final chapter with significant help, as my condition has progressed considerably. Some days I don't recognize familiar faces, and some days I forget how to perform basic tasks. But today is a good day, and I want to finish this story myself. I'm now in the memory care unit at Sunset Gardens, where I've lived for the past 18 months. The transition was difficult, but the staff here understands that dignity doesn't disappear along with memory. They treat me as a person, not just a patient, and they've learned about my advocacy work, which makes them see me differently than they might otherwise. Tommy, now 13, still visits every Saturday. He's taller than me now, with his grandfather, David's kind eyes, and his mother Sarah's determined spirit. Sometimes I don't remember his name when he first arrives, but something deep inside me always recognizes that he's someone I love. "Grandma Margaret," he told me last week. "I'm doing a school project about heroes. Can I interview you?" "I don't think I'm much of a hero anymore," I replied, struggling to find the right words. "Are you kidding? My teacher says you're famous. She showed our class a video of you testifying in court. You looked so brave." I don't remember making that video, but apparently, it's been viewed over 2 million times on various platforms. Sarah tells me I receive letters weekly from people who have been inspired by my story, though I can rarely remember reading them. Dr. Williams from the National Center on Elder Abuse visited last month. She brought news that the advocacy work sparked by my case has led to federal legislation requiring background checks for all facility staff, mandatory reporting systems for suspicious financial activity involving seniors, and funding for elder abuse prevention programs in all 50 states. "Margaret," she said, "your willingness to fight back created a movement. There are now Margaret Patterson centers in 12 cities, providing resources and support for elder abuse victims." I nodded, trying to process information that felt both meaningful and foreign. Do they know I can't remember most of it anymore? That doesn't matter. What matters is that you acted with courage when it counted. That moment of bravery has ripples that will continue long after all of us are gone. Detective Santos, now Chief Santos, stops by occasionally. She always brings updates about other cases her Elder Crimes Unit has solved, using techniques developed during our investigation. The unit has recovered over $15 million for victims and trained law enforcement officers across the country. "You started something important, Margaret," she always says. "Even if you can't remember all the details anymore, the hardest part isn't the memory loss itself. It's the way people sometimes treat me now. Some visitors speak to Sarah about me as if I'm not in the room. Some staff members, despite their training, occasionally use that patronizing tone that treats me like a child. But then there are moments that remind me I'm still here, still valuable." Yesterday, a new resident arrived at the memory care unit. She was clearly frightened and confused, having just received her diagnosis. I found myself sitting beside her, holding her hand. "I'm scared," she whispered. "I don't want to disappear. You won't," I told her, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. "You're more than your memories. The love you've given, the kindness you've shown, the ways you've touched other people's lives. Those things don't disappear just because you forget them." She looked at me with grateful eyes. "How do you know?" I couldn't explain how I knew. Couldn't remember the specific experiences that taught me this truth. But somewhere deep inside, beyond the reach of my disease, that knowledge remained solid and sure. As I finish writing this, I want to leave one final message for anyone who might read these words. If you are a senior facing cognitive challenges, you are not less valuable because your mind is changing. If you are being taken advantage of, you have the right to fight back. Ask for help. Trust the people who love you. Don't let shame or fear make you suffer in silence. If you are a family, member, or caregiver, remember that the person you're caring for is still there, even when they seem lost. Listen to them. Believe them when they express concerns. Treat them with the dignity they have earned through a lifetime of experiences you may never know about. And if you work with seniors professionally, remember that each person in your care has a story, has value, has contributed something meaningful to the world. Their current limitations don't define their worth. I may forget that I wrote these words. I may forget many of the experiences I've described. But the truth remains. We are all more than our memories, and we all deserve to be treated with respect and dignity, regardless of the challenges we face. My name is Margaret Patterson. I fought back against those who tried to steal my dignity, along with my money. And even though I can't remember all the details, I know that fight was worth it. Some battles are won, not by remembering everything, but by refusing to forget what matters most. We've reached the end of this incredible journey with Margaret. If this story moved you, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more amazing stories like this one. Share in the comments what impressed you most about Margaret's fight. Until next time.